The BBC recently aired their 700th episode of The Sky at Night, and I'm joined now by the chief editor of the BBC Sky at Night magazine, Graham Southorn. So Graham, what's it like being the chief editor, firstly, of a magazine that's so closely affiliated with a hugely successful BBC programme?
Well, it's really an honour to be part of that whole world, and we do what we can to publicise the show and to write about the show. All the presenters of the programme are contributors to the magazine, and so no, it's a great privilege to be involved even in such a small way of publicising that incredible programme that's been going for well over 50 years now.
Is that the main role of the magazine, do you think, is just something extra for the fans of the show?
Yeah, it's part of our remit as a BBC magazine to help enhance the enjoyment of a particular subject for the readers, and to help publicise any sort of related BBC programmes and to further their enjoyment. So I would say that we're able in the magazine, just because of the printed format and the fact that we've got over 100 pages of content, we're able to go into more detail about things that they couldn't do on the programme, because the programme's approximately 30 minutes long. The BBC One version goes out every month. And we go out monthly as well, but obviously we can go into greater depth. I mean, we're pretty frantic most of the time. We just kind of get on with it. I think there's two issues really. Firstly, although we've got quite a big brand and we're a BBC magazine, we are small circulation compared to something like BBC Focus or bigger magazines that you've heard of, FHM and Q and things like that. We are a smaller circulation, and that means we have to cut our cloth accordingly. So we obviously have less people, doing that. In terms of the actual subject matter, yeah, astronomy and space and the universe is obviously massive, but it just means that you need people like my colleague Will Gator, who you've spoken to as well, and myself to a certain degree. You need people in the office who can look at the news stories coming in and sort of decide what's important, because there's so much science going on. The key thing is to kind of learn what's interesting and what's important. I mean, a lot of the science is an ongoing thing. I mean, Chris Lintott, who's actually a presenter on the Sky at Night TV programme, he will often talk about how they get some incredible news about exoplanets, and he says things like, well, it's not exoplanets again, we did that last month. And it's such an exciting area, and there's always these new exoplanets being discovered, but the fact is you can't keep on reporting and there's been another 100 exoplanets found. You need to find a new sort of spin on it. It's the difference, I suppose, between the monthly deadlines of a magazine and something like the internet that can be updated instantly in the next day. And obviously, being a monthly, we can't ever compete. Even our news section is going to be, at least a month out of date, because it takes a few weeks to get it to the printer and distributed. So what we have to do is do much more commentary and analysis of what's happened. And I think people appreciate that. I mean, if you look at the success of another magazine that I personally admire a lot, it's called The Week. It's just pure reader benefit driven, because it's summarising all the news that's happened in the past week, in one thing. And you could say, well, why do I need that? I can listen to the radio every day. I can, go to BBC News Online or whatever. But the fact is, you sort of get it all in one place. And I think, especially for astronomy, how many people in astronomy and space are able to keep up with everything that's going on? There's just so much. And NASA churn out multiple press releases per day, quite often. And so we kind of, our aim is to really put it in perspective and actually try and help to explain it.
You have to have a passion in this sort of subject area if you're working on a magazine that's so specialist. What does it for you? What's the most exciting part of the job and the area in itself within which you work?
I think the best part of the job is always to hear when you get messages from readers, emails or posts on the forum, people saying that they've liked something you've done. It doesn't happen all the time, because sometimes you do things that people don't like or complain about.
Could you give us any examples of reader responses that have stuck in your mind, any unique ones that you'd like to tell us about?
What it is people write in and say, Einstein was wrong, here's my theory of gravity, it's all bunk. And Patrick Moore obviously gets a lot of these as well. I think it's something specific in the science field. And he's got a genius way of replying. He'll actually send a letter back and say, that's fine, can you send me the mathematical proof? Because the vast majority of these people have just come up with it. I think one guy just wrote in once and said, you know, the shape of the Milky Way is due to convection currents or something. I know this because I saw the shape in the cappuccino that I made this morning. And, you know, if you ever try and go back to these people who are literally crazy and say, you know, there's more to it than that, you need to do some maths, they'll just come back with some more nonsense. So, but it's just people coming up with stuff and saying, yeah, the universe is like a blancmange, and you just think, oh, how did he come up with that? This is not how scientists come up with stuff. So, yeah, but I think the universe is so abstract, people do think that they can come up with a theory, and they kind of think that that's how Einstein came up with his theory.
Recently on your website, obviously, you had a poll which asked which outer body in the solar system would people like to visit. I'd like to know what one you would choose and possibly why.
Okay. Well, last year we got some incredible posters by a guy in the States who had he goes to the national parks in America, things like Yosemite and Yellowstone, and he takes a lot of photos there, I believe. And what he'd done is he'd done sort of from the early, I think it's 20s, 30s, something like that. There was some really classic American national park posters, and he'd recreated those for planets, and he'd done one that I bought, which was called Titan Seashore. It was basically like pretending that Titan was kind of a national park you could go and visit, complete with sort of shorelines and methane seas and things like that. And I've got it on my wall at home, and I think Titan, just because it's kind of Earth-like but kind of slightly strange at the same time, would be amazing.
Your monthly dose of astronomy on the web.